contemporary translation of the Bible. And it's one of those things, I don't know if you can see it, but a long time ago I highlighted a lot of things in yellow in here that touch my heart. Happens to be that the Psalm 62 is one of them. I discovered that as I was thumbing through here just yesterday. Now, the other thing is the lectionary starts us at verse 5, which is odd, just leaving out the first 4 verses. I think it's appropriate to hear the whole thing. It's only 12 verses long, doesn't take very long. So here's Psalm 62. And right off from the beginning, I wait quietly before God, for my salvation comes from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress, where I will never be shaken. So many enemies against one man, all of them trying to kill me. To them, I'm just a broken down wall or a tottering fence. They plan to topple me from my high position. They delight in telling lies about me. They are friendly to my face, but they curse me in their hearts. I wait quietly before God, for my hope is in him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress, where I will not be shaken. My salvation and my honor come from God alone. He is my refuge, a rock where no enemy can reach me. O my people, trust in him at all times. Pour out your heart to him, for God is our refuge. From the greatest to the lowest, all are nothing in his sight. If you weigh them on the scales, they are lighter than a puff of air. Don't try to get rich by extortion or robbery, and if your wealth increases, don't make it the center of your life. God has spoken plainly, and I have heard it many times. Power, O God, belongs to you. Unfailing love, O Lord, is yours. Surely you judge all people according to what they have done. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now this is a psalm written by David, and it's written by David at a time in his reign, if you will, where there was turmoil. In fact, one of his own sons was trying to overthrow him. There were all these forces at bay working to tear down the kingdom that David had established, because only in David and in Solomon were all the tribes of Israel united as one. It's not hard to figure out the power plays that were going on in this. There's some families of the tribes of Israel thought they should have more power or more prestige or whatever, and so they took opportunities to attack David in any form they could to discredit him. And here David is writing these words, recognizing, and some scholars say that he has even lost part of his fortune already. But he's coming back to his roots, to this God who he has trusted since he was a small boy, and remembering where his hope lies. That's the basis for this story. You know, I understand why the lectionary left out those verses where it's David talking about the problems that he's having. But it's true for all of us, isn't it? That the forces of the world, they throw this and that at us, trying to pull us away from the core of who we really are. In fact, you can look at the world in the larger picture, just in our nation, the power struggles that go on in our nation's capital and through the press, to pressure, to discredit. Nothing's changed. And so we're invited to come back to God. David sums it up and says, "Oh, my people, trust God in all things." I marvel that the forefathers of our country chose to put it on our currency. In God we trust. On the very thing that pulls us away from God. Let's face it, money. It's written right there on it. In God we trust. Several years ago, when I was still down at Kimmer Village, there was a young lady that one of the residents that asked to speak with me privately. And I went over to her cottage one day. We sat outside on the front porch, and she told me her story. Now, you got to understand, all those kids that were there they're there for a reason. They've done something wrong, they're estranged from their families, or they've got in trouble with the school systems or the courts, something's up, right? It wasn't unusual, any different for her as well. But she's a very smart girl, and she progressed through the system at Kimmer Village, did what she needed to do, and was given the opportunity. And she was old enough, 17, 18 years old, that she had a relative, and I believe it was in Mount Vernon, who was going to take her in, adopt her. But she couldn't go back home, which was up in the Chicago area. And so the Sunday that was the day before she was to leave, I'm out there doing the service in the afternoon, and when the service is over, she says, "Can I speak with you?" I said, "Sure." So one of the staff waited there in the hall, and we're in the back of the sanctuary there, and I wished her well, prayed a bit for her, and she goes, "Have you got any words for me?" And it's one of those times when I was asked a question like that immediately I knew the answer. It was there, on the tip of my tongue. Trust God. Learn what that means in your life, to trust God in all things. And the minute it left my lips, I realized that God was not only teaching her, God was teaching me that very truth, to trust God in all things. David in this psalm speaks of two things. I wait is how it was translated in this version. If you look in the NRSV, it says, "Be still before God." And the opening verses, "For that is where my salvation lies." And then in that, it repeats that verse just a couple verses later, but it changes it. "Be still, for that is where our hope is based." Salvation and hope. The gift of salvation, David understood it, was a gift from God. It was there. It was freely given to him. It was nothing that had to be earned. And so that's perhaps where David gets this title established, known for David, who is a man after God's own heart. He wanted to come to understand this grace, this love that God had blessed him with. Somewhere I read this week that salvation is a gift, and our hope is a gift, but it is one that needs to be daily renewed and empowered through our lives. We just don't say, "Oh, I hope in the resurrection," and just go on and live your life however. No, it needs to be nurtured through prayer, through reading the Bible, through being still in the presence of God and allowing God to speak to our hearts. Now, I don't know about you, but I know sometimes it's hard for me to do that. To just be still. I tell you that, but then I also know that 55 days ago, God laid me down in greener pastures to restore my soul by putting me on my rear to recover. And so I have already been able to see that what some people will say, oh, you're laid up and hurt. I'm going, no, I've been blessed by this. That I've had this time to settle down, to be still. And this stillness that's being talked about here is not just being quiet, zipping the lip. But it's more an emptying of that place that you often hear me talk about, that core being of who we are, is to empty it before God. So that there's a place for God to come into us, to dwell with us, to fill us, to overwhelm us. To trust in God. Did anybody see on the news this week the picture? There's a video of a fire, and they see this fireman stand down there, and the father throws his son off the ladder and the fireman catches him and runs away. Yeah, I came across a story of the house fire, and the dad put his son out onto this. It's one of those places where there's a window and there's a porch out through the window, and he put his son out there on this porch. And his dad fought his way down through the flames to get outside, and he finds his son. He says, "Timmy, just jump, I'll catch you." He goes, "Daddy, I can't see you because of the smoke and the flames." He was disoriented. He said, "Daddy, I can't see you." His dad says, "Trust me, because I can see you." That's God, my friends. The Father says, trust me, I can see you. I can see you in your plight. Jump into my waiting arms. I'm there to catch you, to hold you up, to be with you in the midst of whatever seems to be troubling you at the time. And it's in this psalm that David uses those images of the fortress, the rock, the refuge. The same words that we used in that song earlier of your name. It's still true today. That's that place where we're secure. Then he goes on to add about people who think they're really something and those who are nothing. And David said,